Good afternoon and happy July 31st, the last day of the month. I know some of us are more happy than others to see this month shimmy on out. My name is Josie Moore and I'll be presenting you with the Virginia Farm Bureau Merchandiser Minute this week. It was really exciting for me to see green on the board today finish for corn, soybeans, and wheat. We had the September corn contract close at 316 while the December corn contract closed at 327. Both of those were up 1/5 of a penny on the day. August beans closed up 5 at that 897, while November beans closed up 4 at 892. When we get to looking at wheat, the September contract closed up 1.5 pennies at 531, while July 2021 wheat was up 4 at the 549 level. What I thought was really interesting development this week was how much weather played into the markets. We saw some really great export sales, and the weather just kind of washed that out. Last week we were talking about watching that drought monitor, checking those dry areas, and we've seen a lot of people doing some crop tours, so feet on the ground, and even in those dry areas they've seen some really good crops. And so that less severe drought that they were expecting and the fair weather that's forecasted going forward has the markets just a little down. But like I was saying, we had some really impressive exports this week. China actually bought the 3rd largest purchase of new crop corn this week, and that was for 1.9 million metric tons, which brings our new crop corn sales to 5 million metric tons by China. And to see that and then see the markets still not rise, like the corn really struggled this week. And what we're really concerned about, a lot of speculators are concerned about, is that true demand, is that true supply and demand market there? Because they're making these purchases, but until the shipments actually leave, speculators are being a little skeptical about it. We know China's been cutting into their reserves, trying to build their swine herd still some more, so that's to be looked at for more of soybean side of things, but they've been cutting into their reserves. And we're also nervous that they're looking at the United States and that we might have another development in this coronavirus epidemic, and that this fall there might be closing down of some ports, which they saw in South America previously. And so we're nervous that this might be a little bit of front loading. So we don't want this to just be right now they're buying a whole bunch and then in the fall they don't follow through with at least their normal purchases. So that's something to really be watched closely. This was a really good month on exports, but once again 78% of that went to China. So we want to be able to look at that and see that progress going forward and then to continue purchases. Something else that was really interesting in the news this week, or I found it to be anyways, is that there's an Ag Fairs Rescue Act being proposed. And obviously it was due to COVID with so many state fairs and county fairs being closed. And it's an opportunity for $500 million of grant funding to be granted to help stimulate local and rural economies, which kind of seems a little bit like a drop in the bucket compared to the $4.67 billion that fairs contribute to rural economies across the U.S. But I do think it'll help to kind of staunch the bleeding a little bit in those communities, in those factors. So keep looking at that and seeing how that develops. There's also been a lot of talk in DC this last week about farm payments and what that'll look like in the next few months, and what the COVID relief type deal for agriculture will look like. What makes that a little nerve-wracking for us is that we've seen in the past that really affects a lot of producers' marketing habits, number one, and number two, it also affects policy. So how that plays into the next farm bill is something we also want to keep looking at. But I think it's important to remember when we're looking on the scale of things and where these aids coming in, the GDP for the United States was down 32% quarterly, and that's based on the annual. And the stock markets have kind of been a curtain, I don't want to say of deception necessarily, but we've seen some rallying on there. But then at the same time, we've also seen the government come out with reports that 40% of businesses are still not going to recover from COVID and this experience. So all things to really keep an eye on and monitor. Something else we really want to work on going into this next week and this next month for sure is our producers really working on seeing how much they planted, what their yield estimates are going to be, so they can start looking at that break even and really start marketing that new crop. We like to break things up into two different categories of what you can store and what you need to market soon, and so that's something we really should get to looking at. And just make sure we're continually making those small marketing decisions. Next week, we're looking forward to the Monday crop progress report at 4 p.m. And we'd love to help you out. We'd love to talk about new crop. So call anytime next week, and I would love to talk to you. Thanks, and have a great weekend.